Here you go.
Owners meetings. That's the Nothing Personal Word of the Day for Friday, May 2424, as we roll on into Memorial Day weekend. Could have started with the double overtime victory by the Oilers, but no. Could have started with the Pacers not being able to win a game 2 against the Celtics for the first time. Celtics win a game 2, but no. Could have started with what happened in the White Sox-Orioles game, but no. May get to all of those. I got to start with owners' meetings. It just brings me back thinking about trudging into different cities 4 times a year, surrounded by all the executives, all the owners, everybody in the commissioner's office, and eagerly anticipating all of the business that was going to get done during the course of those 2 days. Now that we do nothing personal every day, what I really wait for, although I do miss it, of course I do. Not as much as I don't miss it nearly as much as I love being here with you every single day, live at 8 a.m., except Monday, disappointingly, sadly. But now what I get excited about is when the commissioner of any sport, other than maybe the WNBA, after you have owners meetings, the commissioner has to meet the media. It's like an unwritten rule. It's not in any of the bylaws. It's not in the Constitution. It's just one of those things that the media has come to expect, where for me, it could just as much be the commissioner tweeting stuff, not trying to take away the media right to go travel to these meetings. These were in New York, I think, so that makes it a bit easier. But the commissioner took the stand and had a few nuggets, as usual. Commissioners always have nuggets. You have to just look for them sometimes. You know, it's very simple how it works. You have your PR team around you. You know what the agenda is, because at owners' meetings, everything that's discussed has to be formally put on an agenda. It's a real board meeting. You need notice provisions. You can't just all of a sudden say, hey, I think I want to talk about blank. Doesn't work that way. So you're pretty much able to prepare. You know what you're going to say. One of the topics du jour that has come up and has made all of you question every time you see a bad call, and God knows it feels like there have been way more, but that's just prisoner of the moment stuff. It's pretty much normal. Everyone's waiting for what they're calling robot umps. It's not robot umps. It's the automatic balls and strikes. Very different. Robot umps, I keep waiting for Bridget Moynihan or Will Smith. I just realized something, that making iRobot references may be lost on people. I made a Jerry Maguire reference to somebody the other day. I said, you had me at hello or something. No idea. Blank. I thought that was one of those expressions like, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. I can't remember what movie that is, people would say, but I definitely know it's from a movie. Do you really not know? You had me at hello. You had me at hello. It's what you say to somebody when they keep talking, they keep trying to convince you of something, but they don't need to, because you're willing to do it. You want to do it. You need to do it. You feel like doing it. You're willing to do it. You say, you had me at hello. Like, so I guess iRobot may be an old reference. We're not talking about like a robot. We're not talking about replacing umpires. The excuse that, oh, the union would be too unhappy because they'd lose jobs. No, that is not ever what baseball has contemplated. What they're contemplating is an NBA, NHL, NFL style challenge rule where you can challenge whether a pitched ball is a ball or a strike. And then there would be an automatic strike zone. There'd be a beep, there'd be a bup, and the umpire would know whether it was a ball or a strike, and that would be it. You'd either affirm the call or overturn the call, but it would be immediate. It's brilliant technology. It's technology that exists. It's technology that's being used right now. It's technology that I assumed was coming to the big leagues next year. to the point where a year and a half ago, I said it to you. I had an official wait to see from January 16th of 2023. For the few percent of you today who are new, thank you. I would tell you that wait to see is when I say something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, great. I'm going to revisit it. I don't want to be the guy with 40,000 hot takes a year where I have no idea what I'm saying. I have no care about what I'm saying, emotion about what I'm saying. I just say it thinking that you're all going to watch it because it turns out that you do. No, not me. I'm going to have absolute accountability. I said on that day, automatic balls and strikes will be in Major League Baseball by 2025. And this was back January of 23. Well, the commissioner came out yesterday, said not much progress. So therefore, there will not be ABS. Every time he says it, every time anyone says ABS, I, of course, get a tummy ache and think of IBS, but I digress from any talk of any initials. Nope, not happening. I understand why they need the technology to be perfect. I understand why they need the rules to be perfect, but I think there's a little nuance here as to why ABS is not going to be added for next year. You remember the commissioner has the right to do and implement anything. He can say it, change a rule, wait a year, and then if the union doesn't approve it, it can just be implemented. There were certain things under the last CBA that the commissioner could just do immediately without a waiting period. There's such tension between the commissioner's office and the union right now, and it's tension that's building toward a negotiation that's coming up. That MLB has the view, correctly so, in my opinion. Why bother? Why are we going to do anything right now that will even poke the tiger? We do enough poking when it comes to arbitration, when it comes to free agents, when it comes to pitch clock, time of game, all the things that we're trying to do. There's just no reason for it. Now, I think there is a reason for it because one of the ways to grow your game, in addition to having more people wager on it and building fantasy, the other way to grow your game is to have people believe in the product and love it. They've cut the game times down to like 2.5 hours. It's outstanding. It's where it should be. Umpires are a big part of what people complain about. Last night is a funny example. Not funny if you're a White Sox fan. Not a big deal for the fans of the White Sox because you're not going anywhere this season. What's another loss incrementally? Maybe it gives you another ping pong ball in the lottery. But a game between the Orioles and the White Sox ended with a player interference, a runner's interference on an infield fly. Let me set the stage. It's pretty funny. There's an infield fly rule, which is when all the umpires raise their hand. That's when you know it's an infield fly rule. It's a pop-up. But when an umpire points, which is what the third base umpire did in yesterday's game, he's pointing and calling runner's interference, which is an automatic out no matter what happens in the play. Runner's interference leads to an out. So it ended up being a double play, and the White Sox lose the game. And everybody's upset because the interference was the runner on second, Benintendi, going back to the bag on the fly ball and just sort of walking back, facing home plate, where the shortstop, Gunnar Henderson, was coming in to catch the infield fly and had to sidestep him and brushed him. Got in the way. That's interference. That's a legitimate call by the third base umpire. People are going crazy on Twitter. Worst call I've ever seen. That's a rule. Even the White Sox manager, who doesn't have a future as a White Sox manager, said after the game, I'm not upset about the rule being called. I'm upset about the rule even existing, which got me thinking about another topic. All the things in baseball or in sports or in business that exist because they've always existed. MLB rulebook, let's say it's this thick. And if you're not watching on the Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube channel, please do. Just because you can watch and listen. This thick, let's say 2 inches. And we say we read the rule book every year. We don't. We know the rule book better than most, but not perfectly. I mean, none of us are Rain Man. we carry around because we have to refer to it sometimes. Most things we've come across during the course of a career, most situations we've come across. And when a rule comes up that we may not know about, we'll go to the rule book, then we'll go to the commissioner's office, or then we'll go to our manager and GM and talk it all through. But it got me thinking about rules that exist that shouldn't exist, but they're small ones. They don't necessarily come up too often, so they don't get anyone's attention. My view of things that don't happen often, and then whether or not it is even necessary to deal with, is the following. If you have a chance to be perfect and you have a chance to be right and just and fair, it doesn't matter what the frequency is. I just think that we should all strive for that. So if there's a rule in a rule book that no one ever sees, but you think that if you did see it, that's like the job of a lawyer to try to anticipate everything you're going to see, even though the odds are you're not going to see it. Every possible litigation, every possible fight, every possible angle. That's what you're supposed to do when you do an agreement with somebody. And it's tedious, it's difficult, it's hard to be perfect, but there are adjustments along the way. In a legal contract, you actually have a system to deal with what happens when something comes up that no one contemplated. In baseball and in sports, when something comes up that rarely is contemplated, but actually there's a rule where there could be discretion, but it's not used here, I think you close that hole. I don't think that you should have runner's interference in a situation where there's no runner's interference. Call me crazy. The other thing about owners' meetings that makes me smile, truly smile, is that there are people in charge of owners' meetings in baseball where you have to actually you bring guests in, guest speakers. There's a dinner the night before the big meeting, and sometimes it can be a writer, it can be someone famous who comes in, he'll talk politics or he'll talk about any business, something. It's interesting, always interesting, absolutely. This year, this meeting, they brought in someone from Nike, not that famous, not that interesting. And what the Nike guy, according to the commissioner, was doing was taking responsibility, a mea culpa for everything that went on with the uniforms. Seriously? He actually said specifically, the Nike representative appropriately took responsibility for the issues with respect to the new uniforms. I can imagine sitting in that meeting with our owner. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can leave soon. I'm glad that Nike did that. How about the bankrupt Bally's? Can we cover bankruptcy? Everybody asks about blackouts. You're all worried about blackouts. You're all worried about the bankruptcy. You're all worried about watching your games. You should hope for bankruptcy. You should hope for no reorganization under Chapter 11, because then teams will start going over the air and streaming, and everybody will have access to everything. It's your dream. You should be rooting for the bankruptcy of Diamond Sports Group. Well, they're already bankrupt. You should be rooting for no reorganization. Well, they don't even have a plan yet. You should be rooting for the leagues to prevail and their objections to Diamond's fleeting thought of reorganization. That's what I think you should do. They keep delaying it. The court does. Do you know why courts delay reorganization or courts delay hearings like that? When the parties aren't ready, they ask for a continuance. That's all it is. A delay is called a continuance. And it means we're not quite ready to be reorganized. We really want to be reorganized, but we're going to need another month. So we stay as is, gives another month for MLB to get ready to file their strenuous objection. We covered it earlier this week on the hearing, what MLB said and how upset they are and how unreal it is that there is no plan to even look at. But now they have an extra month to even object in a greater way. Here's another great move. They will strenuously object to the reorg plan. The only other thing of note with the commissioner is the Oakland A's. I like talking about the Oakland A's and their move to Sacramento. I like that the commissioner had to point out to everybody, don't you worry. We are redoing everything, new scoreboards, new camera positions, new seats, new clubhouses. We're going to be ready for Major League Baseball. It's like the NHL saying, oh, the Coyotes are going to play in a totally retrofitted, ready to go college arena. There'll only be 5,000 people there, but don't you worry. We're just delaying you getting to Utah. They've got to keep saying, so you're going to keep reading that the A's are on schedule. There's only one person I would ask you not to listen to when it comes to the A's relocation. Don't listen to the head of the Las Vegas Convention Visitors Authority, please. I'm sure he's a great guy, maybe even a great family guy. Don't know him, don't care. I'm saying in general, when people have an agenda, they are not the people to go to for thorough, unbiased conversation. He's out there saying, we're totally on schedule. He doesn't know squat about crap. We're totally ready to go. John Fisher's got the money. Even Rob said it. Don't worry, John's fine. We're all good. Nothing to see here. Well, he may be right. He may be wrong. I may be crazy. But guess what? It's still relocation to me. It's Friday, Coca. Come on. Billy Joel. Anyone been to a concert recently? I think many of you have. If you have, the Game Time app is a great app to use. Get your tickets. They're a great sponsor of Metalark. We're a part of Metalark Media. Big news yesterday. Big. For all of you people who are upset at ticket prices, for everybody who's upset with hidden fees, or you're upset with all the fees, the service charge, the venue fee, the fee to be alive, the fee to breathe. I can see a world where you have to pay for oxygen. People pay right now to get IVs when they're hungover. It's totally out of the question. To pay for declining resources, water. We expect water to be free. Many people don't have water. Water's declining. Although when you melt the ice caps, it leads to more water. But water's declining. I digress. Water's declining. Maybe you'll pay for water. I don't think it's anyone's God-given right to breathe. Hi, my name's Harrison Blecker. Nope. There is a lawsuit that was filed yesterday that may impact your life for the better. You know that Congress has taken a special interest in Live Nation and Ticketmaster. The Department of Justice allowed for the merger of Live Nation and Ticketmaster, the purchase. Now the Department of Justice says, you know what? I changed my mind. I would like to sue you. And here's why. I believe that the way you operate is really hurting the people of this great country. I believe that you're able to charge fees and you're able to quash competition because you're so big and bad. And we sue Apple, we sue Facebook, Meta, we sue Google. We are here for you. Merrick Garland is what is he? He's the Attorney General of the United States. He said, we filed this suit. We're going to prevent Live Nation from engaging in anti-competitive practices. Well, that's part of your job, so we appreciate that. And then he said, it's time to break up Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Of course, that's a marriage that only happened. That's like your rabbi or priest coming up to you 2 years after you're married and saying, you know what? I sort of changed my mind. I blessed you, but now I'm going to de-bless you. God bless you. What does it all mean? Let's get down right now. I don't want to be nitpicky about this, but I do want to point out to you that these lawsuits, which get joined by 29 states, plus Washington, D.C., they all get together. And really what they're saying is, we found a company here that has gotten so big and so bad and so greedy. And we're in an election year. We want as many citizens as possible to believe that this administration is all about making sure that big bad business pays taxes and that things are fair, because we think that there is a way to combat the conservative movement, the lead in the polls that the conservatives have. And to do it, we're going to take down all the Richies. I get it. It's a tactic. There's no doubt about it. Not sure exactly in my mind what's changed since 2019. In 2000, 4869. I'm not sure what has changed so much since 2010 when Live Nation bought Ticketmaster. I don't think that they will prevail. I think this will drag out much past November. I think that Live Nation does not want to sell Ticketmaster. Why? Because it was a great strategic buy, which allows them in their venues. Live Nation is a huge company that does more than just tickets. They run venues, they run tours. Why are we penalizing? If we want to make sure they pay their taxes, fine. We want to make sure that they pay a living wage, happy to discuss. But don't quash my ability to make strategic purchases when I see a company out there and I want to buy it because it's to my advantage. Hell yeah. This is not me being all about big business. I don't love paying the fees either. I just don't want to be lied about it. Here's the cost. Not everything is available to everybody. They're getting prices that are higher for things, lower for things. Give you an example. Someone asked me yesterday for Justin Timberlake tickets to a concert. I went on the Game Time app and I looked at the Justin Timberlake prices. And I said, wow, those are quite reasonable as compared to Taylor Swift, which was another ask by another person. Why? Because the demand for Taylor Swift is greater than the demand for Justin Timberlake. That doesn't mean that Taylor Swift ought to be penalized because she's the best, or Justin Timberlake ought to get some sort of advantage. What about the 80s cover bands? They're not cover bands, the actual 80s bands. I saw a video, Coca, of Debbie Gibson, maybe someone you haven't heard of, going on an 80s cruise. And I would just say that the price to see Debbie Gibson is way lower. And whether it is the primary price, the secondary price, doesn't matter. The supply-demand economics are the same. The concepts are the same. If you think that Live Nation is the only company, what the Attorney General is saying, well, they're going after so many companies, but if you think that what Live Nation does is they try to keep smaller venues or smaller companies from competing against them, you're right. And do you know how many companies are trying to keep their competitors from doing business with them? I'm just curious. A show of hands. That is the job of every company, is to quash their competition. Sometimes the mom and pop bookstore is going to get swallowed up by Barnes and Noble, and then sometimes Barnes and Noble is going to get swallowed up by Amazon. Sometimes you're the bug, and sometimes you're the windshield. It's how it works. I actually have no problem with it whatsoever. I wonder what the result will be. Is it too much as a society? You realize, of course, we're having the conversation about what kind of country, city, state, town, world you want to live in. There are plenty of areas in this world where they choose to say, no, the government will be the big company and everybody else will be the mom and pop bookstore. There's other countries that say, we want everyone to have an equal right, but you can never be bigger than a medium-sized bookstore. Other countries say, screw that. Build the biggest bookstore in the world, have at it. You're good enough, have at it. Guess what would happen if the people decided they no longer wanted to demand tickets from Ticketmaster? They no longer wanted to go to concerts. Do you think the rules would change then? We all have the power to effectuate change. All we can do is control ourselves. Be one of one, and then you could become one of a million, one of 10 million, one of a billion. Who knows what it could become? And what the Attorney General is trying to do is start the train. The problem is the train has left the station. Okay, when we come back, Survivor ended on Wednesday. Couldn't review it Thursday because we do our top 100 movie. We reviewed Parenthood yesterday, but we're going to review Survivor 46. The 46th season of Survivor came to an end. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in college sports, going back to what we talked about yesterday. A few things to add. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Today is Friday, the 24th of May. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of your support. Go to davidsampsonpodcast.com if you're listening to this. Over the weekend, we are going to start moving our merch store into summer clothes. It is summertime in the city. We also have tickets available to our live shows coming up. We are a month from tomorrow on June 25th. We'll be live in St. Louis. And then on July 1st, we'll be live in Chicago. 2 more legs of this first part of the tour. We look forward to seeing you there. People ask me often whether, I think you can see in this shot, I don't know if you can, over my right there, if you're on YouTube, that is the torch, my exact torch that got snuffed as the first boot on Survivor 28, Survivor Cagayan, Brains versus Brawn versus Beauty. I've got several Survivor items around here. I have the famous rice bowl that Jatia threw in the fire. I have the seat that I sat on. I wanted to do shows from this seat, but I chose the baseball chair. I have the stool that I sat on when I got voted out and blindsided. People asked, you still watch Survivor? Yeah, I have not missed an episode of the show. I haven't missed a season. 46 seasons, 2 a year since 2000. It has been 24 years. I'm not one of the super fans, though. Quick, who won Survivor 15? Don't remember. But if you show it to me, I'll remember. I don't put together puzzles in my backyard, but I do watch seasons. The thing about Survivor, and congratulations right now to Kenzie. Unbelievable that she beat Charlie. It's a great season. If you haven't watched Survivor at all, I would start with Survivor 28 and then go to Winners at War, which I think was Survivor 40, and then go to Survivor 46. This was a great season, interesting players. Shocking end. Am I allowed to spoil? What did we agree, Coca, the rules are on spoiling? 2 days? Gives people 2 days? It's all over Twitter. Like, I don't really understand the whole spoil thing. All right, I'll do it. So there's something that happens in the final tribal council where it's totally unexpected, but it happens. And now what I find interesting are the people who are on Survivor, they try with social media. They're trying to do commercials. Dee just is doing a commercial for a movie. She won Survivor 45. I found the season to be entertaining. The hour-and-a-half episodes work. Jeff Probst and the producers continue to do things to keep the audience engaged, to keep the players wondering when they're on the island. It is very interesting for me to engage with it because I know what's going on behind the scenes because I was there. It is a TV show. There are characters. There are character arcs. We are all here to entertain you for an hour a week for 13 weeks or an hour and a half a week for 13 weeks, 2 hours the first week and then an hour and a half, whatever the case may be. Try to remember for all the unscripted shows that you see out there, and there are so many of them, try to remember that the point of it is for you to watch it, for advertisers to engage with it, and then for you to be entertained. Survivor 46. New season, all newbies. Guess what? They're having return players, Survivor 50. That is a year and a half from now. When I went on Survivor, this is a great transition, Coke. I should probably just do it and not talk about it. I had a hurt hamstring when I went on Survivor, and I didn't tell them about it because you can get away with not saying it. You can't get away without saying what medicine you're on. You can't get away without all sorts of things. For hamstring, no problem. And I remember being on the island and I felt it, but it didn't impede me in the challenge. It was not a huge issue, but hamstrings are bad. And I knew about hamstrings because when I taped Survivor, I'd been in baseball for 13 years plus already. Hamstrings are a terrible injury to have for players. And anytime, and the Knicks know this with OG, anytime there's a hamstring issue, you can try to come back early, but you're not going to be effective. Hamstrings, to me, they rival backs as the two worst injuries and pains you can have. You cannot perform with a bad back. You cannot perform with a sore hamstring. It just doesn't work. Last night, all NBA guard Tyrese Halliburton. I think he was, third team, Coca? Side note, do you remember on Nothing Personal, go back to our previous episodes, we talk about all NBA and how important it is for max contracts and how Ja Morant was not named All NBA and how it impacted his max contract? Well, now with the new revenue from media deals that we talked about yesterday to lead off the show, which means that there's new revenue, which means that there's a new salary cap because salary cap is tied to revenue, which means that max contracts are all going to go up. Like SGA from OKC, if he signs an SM when he's eligible, the 5th year is going to be $81 million. 81. It's unbelievable, actually. And I'm really happy for players. I'm happy for anyone to make as much money as they can whenever they can. But when you get players, SGA is not an example because he's good, but there's going to be some super max players or regular max players who are going to be making just in a couple years $70 million, and they're going to suck. And owners are going to say, wow, I love the new revenue. I love the fact that our teams are worth more. Glenn Taylor will say, I love that my T-Wolves are worth more than $1.50, $1.5 billion. But man, maybe we should expand the rosters or something because we are giving a lot of wealth to players. Tyrese Halliburton left yesterday's game. The Pacers lost. We're going to get to that in our pick of the day, but the Pacers lost game 2. They lost it by 16. It was close at the half, but there was a huge run by the Celtics to start the second quarter. The reality is that the Pacers are really good, but without Halliburton, even a mediocre Celtics team, which this team is not, this team has been, as much as we criticize it, historically good this year when it comes to blowouts. They just blow out teams constantly. They're up 2-0. They are 6 games away from a title, a redemption title. I'm not sure if that would be called that. Although maybe with Tatum and Brown, they need to redeem. Certainly, they are 2 wins away from making it to the finals, which is what was expected of them. Really hard to do something that's expected of you as the best team heading into a playoff round. I just would like to say to all Indiana fans out there, start focusing on the Fever. And the reason I say that, have the Fever won a game yet? I believe they are 0-5, Coca, but I could be not right, but I have that feeling they are. For the first few games, I was totally following every Caitlin Clark game. I turned it on, wanted to watch it, checking every box score. Am I the only one who's lost interest? I assume so. I don't want to be rude about it. I'm just not, it's not must-see TV now. In the beginning it was, but I've just sort of moved on the way people do. You know, we didn't cover yesterday. They are 0-5. In last place, I would think so. How can you be worse than I guess 0-6 would be worse than 0-5. You can be 0-5 and not in last place. That is correct. You can be tied for last place with the Mystics, Van Morrison. So we talked yesterday. I don't know why I want to bring this up, but I really do want to, if that's okay, Coca. We talked yesterday about the NBA deals. I just want to remind people to go listen to that episode. But think about today. Still no word about the WNBA. Nothing. Are they part of the deal? We heard that. For how much? What's the allocation? I needed to see what the wait to see is. My wait to see was right that the WNBA is not going to go out on its own. But I want to know what's being allocated from the new TV deals because I believe the NBA is going to continue to prop up the WNBA, continue to tell you how healthy and great it is. And the way they'll do it is by just saying, oh, by the way, out of this TV deal, not $60 million a year. We're going to give you $110 million a year. Look at that. 89.6% increase. That's a healthy league. Give me a small break. Nothing personal pick of the day. We are 70 and 80. Those were the sponsored picks of the day. We had the Blue Jays beating the Tigers, and they did. We had the Pacers +9 against the Celtics, and they didn't. I think is that 3 straight days this week where we split? I get that feeling. It's at least, I know we were 68 and 78 and then 69 and 79, and now we're 70 and 80. I don't remember what happened the days before that, Coca. Don't worry about it. Let's talk about this weekend. Tonight, we've got game 2 in 2 series, both in the NHL and the NBA. Let's start with my New York Rangers. Let's start with my Florida Panthers. You can cut that. So the Florida audience thinks I love the Panthers. The New York audience thinks I love the Rangers. The fact is, I'm a winner no matter what happens in this series. Not a lot of Panthers fans at the world's most famous arena. Well, game 2 is back here tonight at the Garden. I will not be attending the game. I did get to go to game 1, lucky enough. Get to go to game 5 if there is a game 5. But game 2, it's all about the Rangers. For whatever reason, you have to pay a steeper price for the Rangers to tie the series. It's -110, and the Rangers will tie the series. That's a pick. I was about to say something. Can you read my mind? Because if you could, Gordon Lightfoot, you would say that I was about to say that's a Nicolette Sheridan. It's a sure thing. Guarantee. But it's not. I'll tell you what the sure thing is. Here's what the sure thing is. The Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are 5.5-point favorites over the Mavericks. The Mavericks won game 1. Luka and Irving did not have an efficient game, but they had great games. Anthony Edwards was quiet. I believe there was a bit of jitter. I think A-Rod came into right outside the clubhouse, right to where the fans can stand, and he looked at those players, and he's going to motivate them. He's going to say, listen, let me tell you how to win a World Series. T-Wolves, 5.5 over the Mavs. They will tie that series at 1. Rangers over the Panthers. They will tie that series at 1, setting up an exciting weekend of game 3s. I also have a baseball game I want to talk about on Saturday. We've got the Rangers, the former Ranger, Jordan Montgomery, who now pitches for the Diamondbacks. Anytime I can talk about former Boris guys, I want to talk about them. Jordan Montgomery is the one who signed with the D-backs, and then he started. There's been a bit of a struggle. Well, you've got the Diamondbacks. I'm having a moment right now. I'm having a moment, Coca. I admit it. This is an absolute moment, but I just want to make sure I have it right. Do I have Jordan Montgomery and the Diamondbacks playing against the Marlins? Yes, I do. Few. Do you remember earlier in the week when Sixto Sanchez last pitched and Skip Schumacher, in one of his last things as Marlins manager before he leaves, called out his player? His first inning is unacceptable. He's got to perform. He's got to find a way not to keep us out of the game early. Well, I'm sure that was very motivating to Sixto Sanchez. So motivating that Montgomery and the Diamondbacks are going to crush them. So Saturday, I love this call. We've got D-backs over the Marlins. Those are my nothing personal picks of the day. So I told you I would revisit a subject that we covered yesterday. We talked about private equity investment, and there were a couple shows that tried to cover that. I really enjoyed that segment we did, but I forgot to give you a wait to see, and I want to revisit it. I don't do this often. When I miss the boat, I miss the boat. But that's the beautiful thing about a live show, which we are. It was right there in front of me for me to tell you. Wait to see, and this is an official wait to see. Weatherford Capital and Redbird Capital will invest in a college athletic program. Yesterday, we told you about what they are attempting to do, how private equity could find itself involved in college athletic departments, helping them find a way to give money to players, have money for capital improvements. I assure you that all this talk is going to lead to action. Much like in the NFL, where you heard a rumor that the NFL is getting closer to a deal to allow private equity as part of NFL transactions. NSS, baby, of course they are. These billion-dollar deals can't happen without private equity, so you're going to see it. Big college news yesterday. Important college news that came out yesterday. Again, we've covered this, but I want to re-mention it to you. The lawsuit, the antitrust lawsuit. Remember we talked antitrust with Live Nation earlier today? Remember we told you that former players in House versus NCAA, former college players are suing, saying, we want money. We don't care about our Heisman Trophy. We want actual money. We should have gotten money. We should have gotten paid. And all these conferences are voting to approve a settlement for litigation that's been going on for 4 years, a multi-billion-dollar settlement where billions of dollars will be distributed, sort of like the concussion money. Good luck. And then there will be a percentage of the dollars of the settlement that will go toward a fund that each college is going to have to use for current day NILs. So 5 conferences have now voted to approve the settlement. Everybody has voted to approve it. Everyone's going to approve it. And then there were some comments. And do you remember I mentioned to you, and it's worth mentioning again, this settlement and what it means for the current and future of college athletics, it's totally different. The future of college athletics, because of NIL money, because of free agency, because of the likely unionization, which should happen, and the likely outcome of them being employees, which I also think should happen, it's going to change the way sports and the athletic departments operate on a campus. The campus will simply be a for-profit business. The only way that any private equity goes into college is when there is profit or profit potential. These university presidents understand that. This settlement that's happening that you may or may not read about, but now you know about, House versus NCAA, that is being approved, that is about NIL, that's about making things right that may have been wrong, that's about dealing with the future and making sure that there is a way for teams to compete, which means universities to compete, to attempt to level the playing field. It's total and unadulterated horse hockey. This is not going to level the field. It's sort of like when you change the rule enough that people end up going back to the way things were, and that any sort of incremental efficiency that used to happen disappears when it becomes universal. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Are you thinking about the infield shift, where it was pretty cool when 1 or 2 teams were doing it, or 1 or 2 or 3 players had it done against them, and then when everybody does it, all of a sudden nobody can do it because there's no incremental benefit. People want to believe that there can be a John Ruiz out there, notwithstanding the criminal aspect of what he did and the illegality of what he did and the reality that he has no money, forgetting all that in Miami, but having someone who's loyal to your organization, a group of people, and finding a way under the table to get those players to come to that university, to make that university better. It's like Michigan no longer stealing signs because Harbaugh is with the Chargers. It's like the Patriots no longer deflating footballs because Belichick was let go or didn't resign. People tend to do things in an attempt to get ahead, and they do it till they get caught. That seems ordinary to me. The president of Notre Dame came out with a statement after this settlement that is worth your time. The settlement, though undesirable in many respects and promising only temporary stability, is necessary to avoid what would be the bankruptcy of college athletics. Let me just stop and tell you what that means. What he's simply saying is that were we not to settle, were this to go all the way to a jury trial, were the jury to rule that, man, we've really screwed up, and they awarded $10 billion and not the 2.6 we're settling for, then we'd have a real problem. To save the great American institution of college sports, Congress must pass legislation that will preempt the current patchwork of state laws. This is a funny little nugget here about what the Notre Dame president is saying. Each state has an opportunity to be a state, to be an independent state. Federal law tends to trump state law. Got me? If there is federal law on an issue, that's the law you follow. If there's no federal law because the Republicans say, hey, less government, less oversight, you're a state, you decide what you want to do. God bless America. That's what Roe v. Wade was. Overturning of Roe v. Wade, that did not ban abortion. What banned abortion were the states who are now allowed to have a law of their own about abortion. Don't get me started. Each state could have a law about NILs. It could have a law about boosters. It could have a law about all sorts of things related to the issue at hand, because all states have a legislative body. What the Notre Dame president is asking and hoping is that the federal government comes in and they pass legislation, because what they want is a level playing field. And what's ironic to me is that Notre Dame has never been on a level playing field. Notre Dame takes advantage of the fact that they're not on a level playing field. Notre Dame, with its own lack of being in a conference, Notre Dame with its separate TV deal. Anyway, I just find it funny when people say things. I did it too. We all say things that we want at that moment, not necessarily realizing that we probably understand why we didn't want it before or why we don't want it in other scenarios. And the Notre Dame president, bless his soul, John Jenkins, he didn't stop. It keeps going. We must establish that our athletes are not employees, but students seeking college degrees. What, are we going to come down like off the mountain and declare that all the college athletes are there because they want degrees? It's totally ridiculous. The college athletes don't want degrees. They want to be paid to be athletes. That's why they're in school. Oh, there's a bunch of people in Ivy League schools who are there because they want degrees. Nope. They'd all love to be professional athletes. Who wouldn't want to be a professional athlete? Nope. All these, they're students seeking college degrees. And then he buried the lead. Sometimes when you're in a long statement, 10 or 12 lines, you go around to line 8, and here it is. We need the federal government to provide protection from further antitrust lawsuits. Now we're talking. One of the ways that you want to get protected and you want to make sure that you understand the rules of engagement is because you don't want to be open to liability. You don't want to be open to settlements or to being forced to settle. You don't want to keep writing $2.5 billion checks to people who are aggrieved because there's nothing better, and it's happening all over now. Hey, this happened in 1990. Pay me. Are you sure? Yeah. Hey, you didn't allow me to get my Heisman. You didn't allow me to make money. Pay me money now. You made it so I got a concussion when I didn't have to. Pay me now. You had an unsafe working condition. You made it so you paid me $8 an hour instead of $9. When minimum wage goes up, does that mean that everybody who didn't get minimum wage got the lower minimum wage, that they then get to sue to get the difference? Do you see where I'm going? Not necessarily how I think, believe, but it is what's real. So the whole point of not allowing any sort of antitrust lawsuit Why? Because it's just business. Have a great weekend. No show Monday. Be safe. We'll be back here Tuesday, live at 8 a.m. This is Nothing Personal.